my first video about Modi's visit to Russia and meeting Vladimir Putin just about 3 weeks back, I had called it the most important geopolitical event of the last 2 years.
That continuity is simple, that India does not, cannot, will not ever leave Russia. I repeat, India will never ever leave Russia. And it are good, but unfortunately for them, Modi did make the trip. He did end up hugging Mr. Putin, and that made global headlines. And there's been a spat between India and the US after that.
Now, why is this visit so important? And I'm calling it the most important geopolitical event of the last 2 years. The reason is because Modi 3.0 is a reflection of continued support for Narendra Modi for the policies that the West doesn't like. Hi everyone, this is Samit from TalksonGround. I hope you're doing good. Welcome to the show. If you haven't seen my earlier two videos about what we're going to talk about now, here they are. So before we go into the meeting that Modi is going to have in Ukraine, which is a significant geopolitical event, I want to remind you that in my first video about Modi's visit to Russia and meeting Vladimir Putin just about 3 weeks back, I had called it the most important geopolitical event of the last 2 years. And I think the way the things are going, it might have been a very smart call because a lot of geopolitics is now revolving around that visit. Because the one of the consequences of that visit is that there was a board meeting that took place between the four members of board, which was held up for almost a year. It was initially planned for January and it didn't happen. So it's a very interesting time in geopolitics. If you follow this, this is very interesting and very, very strange events are taking place. For a start, in on June 4th, the Indian general elections results were announced, and Narendra Modi won that, even though with a lesser majority. And he was sworn in on 9th of June as the Prime Minister of India for the third time. Now, this has started a series of events because even though Narendra Modi became the Prime Minister, he's in an alliance government. So a lot of people and a lot of observers outside India were thinking that he's weakened. But he has shown that he is firmly in power and he enjoys unbridled power that he had for the last 10 years and now going into the 11th. And there were a lot of questions about, what kind of government will come into play and so on. But none of those things have happened. Now, as a consequence of that, a lot of players around the world are now taking this government seriously. To start with, the first play that Modi made was to put and meet Vladimir Putin rather than meet any of the neighbors or any other, global leader. Now that's of consequence because the Russia-Ukraine war, which started on February 24, 2024, has become pivotal in deciding a lot of geoeconomic and geopolitical trends. One of the trends came about on October 7th last year when Hamas terrorists attacked Israel, and that conflict is still continuing. And we don't know when either of these two wars that are going on will end or what shape they will take. For sure, a lot of the commentators know that Russia is in a good position, even though it will not want to be in this war, and maybe it was pushed into one. But at the same time, they do enjoy a very, very significant advantage. And right now, they have not pushed in all their main, or rather their superior high quality regiments or, a lot of the weaponry they have. They're fighting with pretty third rate, if I may, equipment. That's not to say they didn't use sophisticated equipment and they haven't had a lot of loss of life. and equipment, and it hasn't cost them. But at the same time, the consequences that were expected from this conflict haven't happened, and they have survived. So Modi's visit to Russia was important for another reason, and which is why this visit to Ukraine is happening. Now, India sits between East and West, and with the East, India has a lot of cultural similarities. There is a common history in terms of being colonized. There are some other cultural things that kind of are very similar. So, therefore, there is a certain amount of affinity that India has culturally as peoples with the East. And with the West, there is a lot of similarity today because India is the, I don't know, the first, second, or whatever, the largest speaking, English speaking population is here. And that allows India to do a lot of business that the West would have liked to do with, say, China, but cannot because they don't speak English. But China is the big elephant in the room, and especially for India. And as a consequence of this visit, one of the things that has happened is that the Chinese are making some overtures to India, which they were not making earlier. For instance, their foreign minister met Jaishankar, I think 2 days back, and their ambassador here has been urging the Indian government to open the flights between India and China, which China itself had stopped about 2 years back because of COVID. Now, the tensions between India and China are definitely pivotal in Indo-Chinese relations, but they're also pivotal between deciding the trajectory of the India-US relationship. And the US is going through very interesting, very troubled, very tumultuous times, as we saw with Biden dropping out, attempt on Trump's lie, and now Kamala Harris becoming the new would-be Democrat candidate. We will know in about 15 days or so whether she's the candidate. And there is a lot of commentary going in that she's taking a lead on Trump. Now we can have our own views about that. But at the same time, what the geopolitical moves around the world are showing is that there is a lot of pressure on the economic front because of the pressure on supply chains and the low growth, the high inflation. So this normally, historically, has resulted in a war. We already have two, and they can flare up in other places, and lo and behold, we'll be in the Third World War. So every leader in the world and pretty much every layperson in the world by now understands the real dangers. And surely all attempts have to be made to bring peace at least to one of these battlegrounds. And therefore, this visit by Modi to Ukraine, Kyiv, is going to become very, very important. I really, I'm skeptical about what consequence or what result that visit can bring, unless there's something that he has to offer from the Russian side, and he has something to offer from the American side to the Russians. Now, I don't know if that is true. I don't know if he's under pressure or is he doing this because that's what Putin wanted, or is this something that Biden wanted, Biden or whoever is in power, we don't know. For sure, one thing has happened. After the visit, after a lot of backlash and a lot of you know, frustration shown by the US administration, commentators, analysts. They have started visiting India. They have started doing some things which would show that they don't want India to really get away and become too close to Russia again. So one of the outcomes was that the IMF has upgraded India's rating. Now, a lot of you might think, how can that be a consequence? I can only say that, trust me, it is. And surely there are other consequences. For instance, there is a urgency shown by the UK in having a trade trade deal with India. Now, remember, India was negotiating trade deals with Canada. India has done a partial deal with Australia. There's a deal in the works with UK. And the UK deal was kind of scuttled last year. And with the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak losing, there was less or little expectation in India that that trade deal would pick up any momentum. But suddenly it has. So we don't know where he's head. We don't know for sure what the discussions on the table are, what are the asks and the gives. We don't know as to, who's really on top, but we can make a guess. And right now, the way I see it is that I think Narendra Modi is in a sweet spot. At the same time, he's in a very tough spot. So it's a very strange time. For America, there's a lot to lose. For Russia, there's everything to lose. Ukraine has pretty much lost everything. And Israel could lose everything as well. So, you know, things can go in any direction from here. We can have a world war, or we could have a quick resolution of Russia-Ukraine war, which would lead to a resolution in the Israel-Hamas battlefront. So we are not sure as to, what would be the end result or the end game. But we do know that the Indian election, the French election, the UK election, and now the American election that's coming up is starting to shape and create a picture. There's a picture on the economic front, there's a picture on the political front, and there's a picture on the geopolitics. On the economic front, for sure, there is a lot of pressure on the dollar. There's a lot of pressure on all economies, including India's, so India is doing much better. And surely the Russian imports are helping. On the other hand, there is a dampening of growth in Europe. For sure, they're struggling. There was a scare that Macron got, and he survived. Rishi didn't. And US, I really would put my money on Kamala Harris rather than Trump. Not for the reasons you would think, but I just don't think the Republicans have solved for all the unaccounted for voters that might turn up on the voting day. So I'm putting it in nice language. At the same time, if we were to look at the two consequences, let's take two scenarios. One scenario that Trump wins, the other scenario Kamala Harris wins. If Trump wins, there is going to be more pressure on China, and if Kamala Harris wins, things could be similar to what they are right now. And my bet is that they will be similar. So if they're going to be similar, then that should put a smile on China's face because they would want the fighting to happen in Ukraine rather than closer to their home, especially now when their economy is not doing that well. There were rumors that Xi Jinping suffered some sort of a health scare. We don't know where he is. Uh, Biden had a similar situation. We know what happened with Trump's assassination attempt. So there's a lot at stake here, and a lot that is happening. And I would say that the next month, when Modi goes to Ukraine, and how that plays out will be important because remember, UK has a new government. Macron just got uh, weakened, but still in power. So there is all of these changes will certainly make the equation different for each of these countries, and each uh, play is going to cause a ripple effect. Like this visit from Modi, which I call the most significant visit of the last 2 years in geopolitics, has caused some ripples. And one ripple is that there's a board meeting. The other was in IMF. And I'm sure there are other consequences out of this. So let's see what happens, and I will keep updated. I'm following this story very closely. I think this goes right through the geopolitics of the times, and I shall come back to you when we know more, when more happens on this story. If you liked what I've said, and if you like the video, please like it, share it, subscribe to the channel, and have a good day. Goodbye.